Hey budget gardeners, Vita Loca here. Join me today as we update and refresh a bunch of pots and hanging baskets. Let's go. Here in New Hampshire, Zone 5B, we have a very short growing season, relatively speaking, compared to a lot of other parts of the country. Our growing season is basically, I have the end of May, end of June, end of July, end of August. So 4 months to grow all my annuals and plants that are not hardy in this area. So I have to be a little creative with how I do my plantings. I can basically wait until Memorial Day weekend and then do all my window boxes, all my pots, all my hanging baskets. I don't want to wait that long, which is why together early in the spring, we made a lot of these pots together, a lot of these window boxes, a lot of these hanging baskets. We used plants that were hardy and that could tolerate the cold weather. It is now the middle of July. It's been quite warm. And together, we did go ahead and cut back a bunch of the chives. We did some maintenance on these pots, like cutting back the pansies. They still don't look good. At least they don't look good for me. And one thing that I want to stress to all of you is it's okay. It is totally okay to change things up. I don't want to live with this until my first frost. I want to be able to enjoy my gardens, enjoy my pots. So we are going to update all of these. There are going to be some elements that I'm going to keep in these containers. Maybe I'm going to cut some things back. Maybe I'm going to remove some things. Maybe I'm going to add some things. To be honest with you, I don't have it all planned out. So together, we're going to tackle this project step by step, and we're going to make all of these pots beautiful again. So grab some coffee or a drink of your choice, and let's get started. We're going to start with this pot here. I have 2 pots that are identical, and these pots are located near my side porch. We recently took out some lettuce from the front here, and we put in this wax begonia that I started from seed. We're going to keep that there because I think it looks fine, but I definitely want to remove the chives at this point. So let's start with that. And I'm just using a small hand shovel, and I'm going to dig that out. Chives are an herb. They are perennial. And so what I'm planning to do is I'm going to pot this up, and this is going to go down in my plant nursery. I can use it again next year. I really did love the look of it in the early spring. I definitely will do this again. I just, at this time of year, I don't want this in my pot. And that's fine. It is totally okay to have plants for a short period of time, which in my case is about 2 months, in a pot. All right, good. So the chives are out. And it makes sense that when I pot this up, I'm going to just divide this into 2 pieces. I'm going to give it a haircut and put it in my plant nursery. So now what we're left with is we have our wax begonia. I might as well at this point cut off any leaves that don't look good. I might as well deadhead it. So these right here are spent blossoms. I'm just going to go ahead and take them off. Take off any leaves that don't look so good. I think the creeping Jenny, which is right over here, looks wonderful. And we have some more over here. And in fact, the creeping Jenny is just starting to blossom. Has a nice yellow blossom on it. Alyssum is something that does really well in the spring, during the summer, and even into the fall. But it really should be cut back at this point. It's looking a little tired. So what I'm just going to do is cut it by half. We have a small piece of Lamium here, which I suspect this Lamium is going to take off now. It really was hidden with everything else that was in this pot. So now we can breathe a little bit easier. What generally happens in pots or containers is weeds appear as well. So I'm just going to pull out any weeds that I find. Here we have some more of the Tiny Tim Alyssum. Let's give it a haircut. This here is a pansy that got pulled out while I was digging out the chives. We will deal with that in a few minutes. I'm just going to put it to the side. It's definitely become a little bit of a tangled mess in here, so it's just a matter of moving things around, cleaning it up. Over here we have Lamium, and this piece looks really good. I'm going to go ahead and deadhead it. So there's blossoms on here that look very good. This one over as well looks really good. But this right here is a blossom that's gone by. And if you deadhead your Lamium, it will reward you with more blossoms. Here's another example of a blossom that's gone by. Here we have some more Lamium. So let's go ahead and deadhead it as well. Our Alyssum, I'm going to cut that by half. We have some more Creeping Jenny over here. And this piece is no good, so I'm just going to clip that out. So what we're left with now are pansies. And the pansies are leggy. They're way too leggy. So I really could do one of two things. I could pull them out, or I can cut them way back down and take a chance with them and see if they refresh for us for the late summer, early fall. And that's what I'm going to do. If I don't like the look of them as the weeks go on, I can always just pull them out. It's that easy. And I'm literally just following them way down. And I don't want to cut them all the way down to the bottom, but I want to get as close as possible. I'm looking for basically a node where there's leaves coming out, and I'm clipping there. As long as there are some leaves on this, it keeps the plant alive. And if I end up losing it, no big loss. The next thing I want to do is I see opportunity in the center. And I still want something that's tall that gives it just like that thriller look to this pot. I do feel that this begonia is going to now flush out and fill out more. It couldn't before because there was just too much going on around it. And the only main thing I'm missing in here, I have color, I have spillers, I just need a thriller. Even though this could act as a thriller, I want something a little bit taller than it. So let me go get a plant and I will show you what I've come up with. I have a yucca. I have a large yucca in my yard. Actually, I have a few yucca plants. And I was able to propagate the yucca plants and get basically baby yucca plants. I think this would be wonderful in the center of this pot as our thriller. A lot of times you can go to the store and you can buy basically spikes, I think they're called. And here in New Hampshire, at least, Zone 5B, those are considered annuals. And I feel like this gives a very similar effect as those spikes. The big advantage that I have here is that this is a perennial. I can put this back out in my landscape and use it year after year. Before I plant it, now is a great time for me to add some slow release fertilizer to this pot. So I'm going to use my Osmocote slow release fertilizer, and I'm just going to sprinkle it in the pot. And just kind of mix it in. It'll just rejuvenate the plants to help them from now until the fall time. Now let's go ahead and plant our yucca. All done. What a nice refresh to this pot. It just looks so much better than it did before. And I added some fertilizer, which will really help everything grow better. And the yucca, I think, is a nice addition to this as well. I'm going to go ahead and do the same exact thing to the other pot that's identical to this one. I figured you might want to see me do this since I'm going to be doing this a bunch of times with all my containers. I take the chives and I first give them a haircut. It's amazing how quickly chives grow back. So if you're not able to use all your chives, give them a haircut. Within a week, they will grow right back. The next thing I'm going to do is divide the chives. You can try to pull them apart, but I prefer to just cut straight through. So I just try to find an area. And then carefully cut right through. And then it's a little easier to tease them apart. And now I can go ahead and pot them up. You could also plant these out in your landscape if you want to. I don't want to do that because I plan on reusing these chives in my pots and my containers next year. There, pretty simple. That's how you go ahead and you divide your chives. We also put this pot together in the spring, and I had this out near my front porch where my pond is. There are two things I'm definitely going to pull out of here, one of them being the chives again, and the second one being this beautiful primrose. It was so pretty in the spring, and I think it's done blooming. I see a couple of spent blossoms here. I was very good about deadheading it, but at this time, I don't believe it's going to bloom anymore. So I'm going to go ahead and dig both of these out. Once again, I'm going to divide the chives, put them in pots, and put them down in my plant nursery. And when it comes to the primrose, I'm almost sure I'm not able to divide it, but I'll look when I dig it out. If I'm able to divide it, I'm going to divide it. Now that the chives and the primrose are out, I'm going to go ahead and do some maintenance and just inspect all my plants. I think the creeping Jenny looks very good. The Alyssum is looking very leggy, so let's go ahead and chop it back by half. Maybe even a little more than a half in this case. I'm just inspecting the Lamium to see if there's anything we can deadhead. So we can deadhead this one right here. It actually looks relatively good. There are not a lot of pieces in here that have gone by. It's still blossoming really nicely. Look how beautiful that is. I love that Lamium is a wonderful shade ground cover, and it also is wonderful in pots. Highly recommend you get Lamium if you don't have it. Here's another Alyssum. I'm going to just chop it back. And we have some creeping Jenny over here. Well, we have some good opportunity here. We have a lot of spillers going on all the way around this pot. And this pot is situated in a place that gets mostly shade. It gets a little bit of sun, but quite a bit of shade. I do have some tuberous begonias that I wintered over and we sprouted together in the spring. Let me go grab one and let's see how that looks in this container. Look how good that looks. It's just been sitting there with all my other annuals waiting to be potted or to do something. It's in a pot, but it really shouldn't live the rest of its summer in this pot. So I'm going to go ahead and put this in here. I'm just thinking though, on the front, I would also like to add another spiller. So let me go grab that from my annual area where I have all my plants. Ta-da! That is a trailing vinca, and that is an annual in my zone. I overwintered it in my garage because it's not hardy in my zone. And every year I would buy this, and now I've learned I don't need to buy it every year. I can propagate them myself, I can overwinter them in the garage, and I can have plenty for my containers and pots. So before I plant these, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some slow release fertilizer in this pot. And I don't need to add any additional soil. It looks like I have plenty in this pot. These type of begonias can be very pricey, so to be able to overwinter them is definitely nice. And I've been able to divide them as well. I'll show you how to do that as the season progresses. If you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel. You don't want to miss out on updates on these pots, on how to overwinter things like these type of begonias, or how to propagate them even. I disturbed the roots a little bit. I don't want to do it too much. I don't want to ruin the tuber. I'm not adding water to these pots because they are set on irrigation and the soil is wet. And after I'm planting them, I'm putting them right outside where it is raining out today. Next, we're going to go ahead and add our vinca here. I absolutely love this vine. I think it's beautiful. I love the variegated leaves on it. And what I really love is that I only bought one last year, and then I ended up with multiple pieces of it to play around with for this year. So for this primrose, I would like to go ahead and divide it. It looks like there are a few pieces here. And I'm just taking a look at the root system. Gently trying to pull it apart. There are a couple of roots here, so that plant should survive. And this as well has some roots to it. It wasn't the easiest perennial to divide, that's for sure. I had to be a little rougher than I wanted to be with this plant. But hopefully they should be okay. It looks like I got 3 plants out of it. I'm going to go ahead and plant these in my landscape. They like part sun, and I'm going to put it in a bed that has irrigation because they do like to have a lot of water. All done. I love just being able to refresh my pot. Half the summer's gone by, but why should we live with a pot looking so old and ratty when it can look fresh again? Next, we're going to be working on some window boxes as well as some hanging baskets. It can seem overwhelming when you have this many containers and pots. I have 4 small window boxes off my balcony, and they look pretty sad. One thing I did notice that I'm actually very excited about is that the pansies that are in here, which are the celestial blue pansies, have started to go to seed. And that's a good thing in the sense that I do want to collect some of these seeds. so that I can grow these pansies again next year. So while I am going ahead and cleaning this pot up, I am going to collect the seeds while I'm at it and dry them and store them for next year. In terms of my plan for this pot, I am going to be cutting back all the pansies to a very, very short level, and in the hopes that they will rebloom in the late summer, early fall. I'm going to follow them all the way down. I want to make sure that there are some leaves down here still. So at this node right here, just cut it back. I see that there is a node right there, so I'm going to cut it back there. Pansies have been cut back. They look good. Let's go ahead and spin this pot around. The next thing that I'm noticing is that there are some weeds in here. It happens in our window boxes and our containers, right? We just have to manage it. So I'm going to go ahead and pull these weeds out. The next thing I'm going to do is cut back my alyssum. Wow, check out this weed. Let's get that guy right out of here. And yes, I know this poor pot looks pretty bare, but trust me when I say it needed it and it gives us opportunity. I am going to go shopping in my holding area where I have a bunch of annuals that I started from seed, and we're going to put some plants in here and make this look beautiful again. What I'm going to do now is just add a little bit of slow release fertilizer just to give this pot a little bit of a boost to help it through the remainder of the season. And the hope here is that the alyssum will reflush and it's a white color, will look really pretty here. These are the blue pansies. The hope is that they will also grow and look really pretty late summer, early fall. While we're waiting for these to grow and for these to get bigger, what I have over here is celosia. I started these from seed, and honestly, I did not know where I was going to put them in my yard. I have a lot of red, a lot of pink in my yard, so I just wasn't sure where to put these. I think the pink celosia will look really pretty in here. It'll give it some height, give it some instant color. We're going to go ahead and pack these window boxes with celosia. These window boxes pretty much get full sun, so the celosia should be very happy there. I think 5 will do it. I'm noticing that they have a habit of wanting to branch. I'm going to let them do that. They are definitely very leggy. So over time, I will be keeping them controlled by cutting them back so that they get bushier and they fill out. I will definitely give you an update on how this window box is looking upstairs off my bedroom balcony. But I'm just happy to see it nice and clean. And also, I'm looking forward to these getting bushier. But as I wait for that, at least I have some color in this box now. I'm going to go ahead and keep on planting these window boxes. As I was working on these window boxes that are going to be upstairs off my bedroom balcony, I realized that it might look pretty to have some Dichondra silver falls in here as well. And I had bought some last year. They are not hardy in my zone, but I overwintered them in my garage. And they've just been sitting in these pots. I haven't really found a place to put them. So I want them to grow and get bigger so that I have even more plants for next year. I really want to have a lot more of this plant. I don't have many. I have probably 5 plants. I started with one and I was able to propagate it into 5 in the spring. And by next year, I want 15, I want 20, so I can use them in a lot of pots. But they're not going to grow and get bigger if they don't get planted. So I'm going to pop one into each of my window boxes that I'm making here. And what I like is that they will add that silver or gray color foliage to this pot. I love these freshened up window boxes. I do believe that the celosia is a taller variety, so I'm just going to keep cutting it back and let it get bushier versus letting it get much taller. And the dichondra silver falls will fill in very nicely. It will trail and get bushier as well. I can't wait to see what this looks like in a few more weeks. I'll be sure to give you updates on these window boxes as well as all my other containers. When it comes to the celestial blue pansies, what I want to do is save the seeds. And I'm just looking for the seeds and scraping them off. They're pretty small. I typically, when I collect my seeds, I like to put them on a paper towel. And then I just keep them in a dry location away from any wind, typically somewhere in my house where my cats can't get to them. And I just let them dry for about a week. And after they've dried, I'll put them in an envelope. I'll label the envelope, in this case, Celestial Blue Pansies, and I will keep them for next year. You can really save a lot of money by saving your own seeds. And these seeds are heirloom seeds, so they should be true to the parent plant, which is nice. Here's another one. And I could just bring this inside like this and lay it down on the paper towel and it would dry and they would come off really easily also. So I'm going to do that with this one here. Generally speaking, I would say that all of my hanging baskets look pretty good. What I plan on doing with all of them is looking over the alyssum. This piece right here looks really good. I'm still going to cut some of it back, maybe down near the bottom, but otherwise it actually looks really good. And when it comes to the pansies, I'm going to do the same thing like I've been doing with all my other pansies. I'm just going to cut it way down to the bottom in hopes that it flushes out later in the season. So give it a nice hard cut back. With the Lamium, if there are blossoms that have gone by, I will be deadheading all of the Lamium. And if there are a few hanging baskets where maybe the Lamium is not as full, or maybe the creeping Jenny is not as full, I will just get some from my landscape and fill them back up, make them look pretty again. But honestly, I think between just the Alyssum, the Lamium, and the creeping Jenny, I think that the baskets look really pretty as we are cutting back our pansies. I don't think I really need to add much more to these to make them look beautiful. And I will also be giving all of my window boxes and hanging baskets some fertilizer. If there are weeds, I'm pulling the weeds out. I think that looks really good, nice and clean and fresh. I'll go ahead and do this with all the rest of my hanging baskets, and I'll also be giving each of these some liquid fertilizer. On my back porch, I have 3 window boxes. I've gone ahead and done the same process of deadheading the Lamium. I pulled out the 2 chives that were in the back there. I cut back all the pansies and I inspected the creeping Jenny to make sure that it still looked good. I cut out any bad pieces from there. So now we have opportunity. And since that section is part sun, and since I still have lots of annuals left that I started from seed, we're going to pack these window boxes with Dusty Miller. We have some pink vinca and we also have some white vinca. So together we're going to go ahead and plant this one window box, and let's make it beautiful again. The first thing I'm going to do is sprinkle some slow release fertilizer in here. And we're going to start with the Dusty Miller. I think 2 will be plenty. And we're going to put them on either side of this pansy that I cut back. Just like with all my other Dusty Miller, I don't want the Dusty Miller to get too tall and too leggy. So I will go ahead right now, actually, and I'm just going to cut it back now, just so you can see how I do it. So I do have some leaves here. I'm going to cut it right there. Same with this one. We have some foliage here. We're just going to cut it here. And what that will do is it will force the Dusty Miller to branch out more and not be so leggy. Next, we're going to plant some of the pink vinca. And before we plant them, I'm actually going to place some. They look very tall compared to the Dusty Miller. But over time, again, this is going to branch out. If I have to, I can top it off and just cut it back a little bit. There's really not a lot of room in here. So I actually think just 2 vinca that are pink and 1 vinca that's white should be plenty to fill this window box up. So let's go ahead and get them planted. This is going to fill out very nicely. So just imagine the white of the alyssum is going to start blooming again and get bushy. Then we also have the blue that comes from the pansies that we cut back, and they're sprinkled in here, and those will eventually start blooming again. And while we wait, we have a little bit of color. We have the 2 pink vincas and the white vinca here. And then the Dusty Millers will get bigger as well. So this is going to look really pretty as it fills out. We're almost done. I have 2 more pots left, and these are going to go on my side porch where it's pretty shady there. So I'm going to do the pots a little differently. I'm going to stick with using the Dusty Miller, but then also I have some of my coleus that I started from seed. Actually, all of these plants I started from seed. The coleus are looking pretty sad, but keep in mind these plants have been in these pots since winter, so they need to get out. And then we also have some begonias that I started from seed. So we're just going to get planting now. The normal maintenance has been done. I cut back all the pansies. I cut back the alyssum. I cut back any of the blossoms that have gone by on the Lamium. So what we're going to do now is add our slow release fertilizer. Just scratch it in a little bit. And as I normally like to do, I'm going to place the plants, and we're going to see how they look. It looks like I have a pink, I have a white, and then some smaller ones here. It looks like 2 white and a red. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a white in each of them. And I think in one of them I'll do a pink, and in the other one I'll do a red. At this point, I am okay with not having plants be consistent because I only have these plants left to pick from. I'm thinking something like this and then putting the coleus on either side. Let's give that a try. This window box will definitely be filled up pretty quickly. Let's get planting. As I was planting, it occurred to me that there realistically is not enough room in here to put 2 begonias. I'm not sure what I was thinking. That's all right. I think it will look very pretty with just one. And I'm just deadheading it. And when it comes to blossoms on coleus, basically I like to cut them off. I think the purple is pretty, but I also want this plant to get bushier at this point because it is extremely leggy. So I am going to be cutting it back, and I'm just going to cut it back to a point where I see a couple of leaves coming out on both sides. This window box is done. Let me go ahead and work on the next window box. This project is finally complete. It took me from early morning until late afternoon, but it was well worth the effort. I still have half of summer left. I can enjoy all of these window boxes, hanging baskets, and pots all over again. And when it comes to the chives, those are just going to go down to my plant nursery, and I'm going to heel them into the dirt. Other than that, I am going to go ahead and place everything where it needs to go. Be sure to look for my next garden tour, and I'll give you some close-ups of all of these over the next few months to keep you updated on their progress. I hope you're enjoying your gardens, and until the next video, make it a great day with gardening.